Good evening, welcome back. It is Friday, July 7th, 2023. We continue on in this series that's been a lot of fun, going through the cards and the birthdays and all that, and finding some different cards and such that I didn't realize that I had or forgot that I had or what have you, and going over some events. So, looking back at the events, pretty interesting day to be honest. 1966 on this day, and I only bring it up because of two reasons. One, I remember Ken Squire talking about it during the 1991 Legends race at Charlotte during the Winston All-Star race weekend. But on this day, 1966, Elmo Langley wins his second and final career race at Manassas, Virginia. Kind of two things. Of course, Elmo was a longtime car owner and eventually pace car driver for NASCAR. His final career win. But also, 1966 on this date was the last time that the number 64 has won a Cup Series race. So that's quite a long time, quite a long losing streak there. On this day, 1990, Dale Earnhardt wins his first career points-paying race at Daytona in the Pepsi 400. The race was marred by a first-lap crash that involved well over half the field. I believe really there was 9 cars, I believe, that finished on the lead lap, and that was really the cars that came through unscathed. There's a few other crashes during the race, but there's maybe a dozen cars that made it through the wreck initially with no damage. On this day in 2001, on the return trip to Daytona, the same track that Dale Earnhardt passed away at earlier that year in February, Dale Earnhardt Jr. wins his first points-paying Cup Series race at Daytona, beating Michael Waltrip in a late race duel that seen Dale Jr. come from 6th to 1st in the last couple of laps. And that also was the first race for NBC in the new TV package. They had been airing a couple of races a year the prior couple years at Homestead, I believe, but this was their first race as a full-time network. Also on this date in 2001, which I thought was really, really ironic and didn't really realize it, at Kansas, Ricky Hendrick wins his only career NASCAR National Series race in the Truck Series. So I thought that was very, very unique. 2007, Jamie McMurray wins Daytona in a photo finish over Kyle Busch. We all remember that one. His second career win, his first with Roush. And 2 first-time winners on this date. In 2018 and 2019, Eric Jones wins, what was that, demolition derby of races at Daytona. In 2019, Justin Haley was the benefactor of that huge late race crash when he stayed out under caution. Everybody else pitted, and then the rains came, then the lightning came, then more rain, and then NASCAR was forced to call it. So let's start off with some birthdays. We're going to start off in the drag racing world. Born on this date, 1943, Pro Stock legend and champion, the professor himself, Mr. Warren Johnson. Remember growing up watching this guy on Diamond P Sports, TNN, whatever, would host drag racing. Warren was had long-time support from GM, so he's always running AC Delco or GM Goodwrench. His son Kurt would go on to win several Top Fuel races as well. Go to the IndyCar open wheel world. Born on this date, 1952, tragically passed away in 2000, Mr. Stan Fox. Stan was very, very talented, ran a lot of dirt cars, a lot of Indy cars, even moved to NASCAR for a short bit, ran a couple races there, ran some ARCA. Stan had a horrible crash in 1995 on the opening lap of the Indy 500, suffered some pretty traumatic head injuries, and never really fully recovered, was never allowed to race again, and technically shouldn't have been allowed on the road again, and he did pass in a highway crash. So, that's sad to hear for such a talented driver of his era. Born on this date in 1950, has been by her husband's side for many, many years, when he started racing and when he finished racing. Got a couple cards here of her, Miss Stevie Waltrip. A couple cards from Action Pack, so a little bit of information there on both of those. Then we will move to another driver's wife birthday who's been by her husband's side for most of his racing career and will be shortly for the end of his career. Born on this date, In 1973, Miss Delana Harvick. So there you see her on this. I think that's one of the first appearances of her on a card. 2003 Press Pass Eclipse Racing Champions. I really like this one. Even though it's a Harvick card, she is prominently featured. So let's look at the back of that. And then this is the only one that Trading Card Database I remember listed was the Racing Side-by-Side at NASCAR Press Pass 07. So I thought that was super cool to find all of those. And our final driver, born on this date in 1989. He always punches above his weight class when driving in an underfunded car, but when he does get an opportunity with a better team, things always seem to go sideways for this guy. Mr. Landon Cassill. Now, I've got these arranged chronologically. So he did start in 2008 in the Xfinity, the Nationwide Series. Won Rookie of the Year over Brian Clausen. Really is pretty close race, in my opinion. I guess Landon did have the advantage because he did have a few better finishes. Excuse me. He did move up to the Cup Series for a bit with Phoenix Racing. Really didn't do much because they were kind of starting park. There you can see part of the car. They switched from number 51 to 09 and then back to 51. I'm not sure what that was all about. Then he went over that abomination BK Racing. He was there for at least a year, maybe 2. But, you know, because he got a few different uniforms there. Of course, Burger King was not sponsoring the car. That was Ron Devine's. Kind of like with Bob Jenkins in Front Row, when Front Row would run Taco Bell and Long John's and A&W. That's not a sponsorship from those. That's him just putting the logo of his franchises on there. So nationally, they're getting free advertising. But makes the cars look a little bit nicer too. Then he moved to Front Row for a bit, where he did have like Love sponsorship, and then whatever Snap Fitness 24/7 is. Between the 34 car, there you see the 34, and the 38 with Front Row, so he's kind of playing musical chairs there. I can't remember if that wasn't when Kevin Conway was with that team, but they would always play musical chairs with their drivers for some reason. There's one with just the plain Front Row uniform. There's the Love's uniform, and then Starcom for a bit. Did reasonably well there, definitely did a little bit better than Quinn Huff did in that car. But he ran Starcom for a year or so. And then I'm not even sure who this is, just a generic uniform. Let's see if it even says anything on the back. It really doesn't. It says Starcom. But I think that by that point, he was just, whatever, I'll have uniform, will drive. Do kind of feel bad a little bit for Landon because, like I said, he always punches above his weight class when he's in an underfunded ride. Then when the big rides come along, like last year, of course, you can't blame him. Voyager Crypto did default on whatever they did. And, he was stuck holding the bag and couldn't fund the ride any longer. With Colleague, and he did, that last race leading into the playoffs, he was in and then he was out. So lots of bad luck for Landon when he always gets a better ride. Then when he's in the lower tier rides, he always shines. So anyway, that's our birthdays and events for today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks again for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will see you tomorrow.